Good evening. Oh, I love it when that happens. Good evening, scholars, trustees, guests, ladies, gentlemen, children, boys and girls, any pets that we happen to have in the building. Welcome to our 2019 annual gathering in this amazing hall. For those of you who've been to our annual meetings over the years, a wee bit better than the Strathclyde Lecture Theatre, yes? Oh, even a whoop, that's good. And we're doing things a bit differently this year, which we'll explain to you as we go along. But one of the things we're doing differently is that I'm assisted in presenting this event by some of our amazing scholars. You're all amazing, by the way, but these scholars are particularly amazing. And the first one that I'm going to introduce you to is Aaron Hawthorne, my co-presenter for the evening, who will tell you a little bit about what we're here for.
Well, hello, can you hear me? No.
Are you switched on, Aaron?
The mic on, is what I'm being told. Are we on now?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Fabulous, we're off to a good start. I need to warn you that Gordon's sort of just fresh out of pantomime season in his community theatre, so I think that's why we got the boys and girls thing at the start. I'm recognising a lot of faces, which is great to see, and it's very exciting to be in this venue, actually. As we said, the past few years I've been in Strathclyde Uni, and it's been great, but this is a much more exciting format, I think. So why are we here? It's going to be a little bit different from previous years. Hopefully we've got a bit of something for everyone. This is one of the things we were sort of looking at over the past few weeks. How do we make sure that everyone goes away from here knowing that they've been included and that they can take something away? So we've got presentations from some of our Sir Ian Good leaders. We have opportunities to learn about other opportunities open to scholars throughout the years as you progress. And we also, I have been asked to mention, we have our new Instagram account. Who has followed it? Wow.
Oh, there's a few hands out there.
Yeah. So, feel free throughout the course of this gathering to go and follow us at Rob Trust Scholars, and feel free to be taking photos and putting it up. Now, I've cracked a bit of a code. If every single person in this room who has Instagram goes on and follows the account, and then follows everyone who's followed the account, we're all going to be 400 followers up. So get it done, I'll be doing it. So what do we have, Gordon?
Well, so I think you've already mentioned, Aaron, that this year's format includes some of our Sigler leaders sharing their stories, maybe not so much of a conventional presentation, but more a conversation. So what we're trying to go for here is a little bit more like if you go to book festival, I'm sure you all go to book festivals regularly, we're looking for a kind of book festival vibe here tonight, a little bit relaxed, a little bit just telling you what people's experiences are, how they're experiencing the scholarship and the Sir Ian Good Award in particular. And these scholars have been working with the fabulous Ishbel Smith, who's our friendly face down in the front row for us tonight, who's also done a workshop this afternoon with some of you who are here. And Ishbel's been working with the scholars to help them develop their presenting skills and provide a really interesting evening for you today. So I think, Aaron, shall we introduce the first speaker?
Well, before we do that, we had a bit of a joke the other week about how quite a lot of these things, we come up with this term of the usual spiel. And I'm going to be killed for saying that on stage. But we all know a lot of the facts about the Robertson Trust. We've all learned about the great Three Sisters and likes, and some of the great places that Robertson Trust pops up here and there. But hopefully we're going to try and sneak in a few facts we've not really let out before. So anything that's said in these walls, keep them in these walls. You're the first to find out. No, by all means go and share the good that Robertson Trust do, but hopefully there'll be a few facts that come out that you've not heard before, such as...
So it just so happens that I've got one prepared here. So some of you, or most of you may not know that we in the Robertson Trust give money to an organisation called SportsAid Scotland. And SportsAid Scotland give money to young Scottish athletes to help them travel and compete in various competitions. And that's a huge number of them every year, over 100 every year get the funding from SportsAid. And just to show how successful that is, The last Commonwealth Games at the Gold Coast, 2/3 of the Scotland team had received funding from Sports Aid Scotland and therefore from the Robertson Trust. And we have lots and lots of current and post holders of those awards, and I'm not going to go on about it, there's your fact, but one that is worth mentioning, who you might just have heard of, is Sir Chris Hoy, who received funding from us. So there are lots of people out there who receive funding from the Robertson Trust for sport. Aaron.
So, I think we're about ready to introduce our keynote speaker for tonight. We're all very excited about this because we've been hearing lots about it, and it's going to be fantastic. So our first keynote speaker is Rosie Moore, and Rosie is a final year scholar studying at Strathclyde University. No one in from Strathclyde University tonight. Strathclyde University. And after undertaking her internship with the Care Review, Rosie has gone on to be co-chair of the Care Review's Love Journey Group and also works with the Life Changes Trust. And we're delighted that Rosie has agreed to be our first keynote speaker. So please welcome Rosie Moore.
I don't know who wooed me. I didn't think I had that many pals, but thank you. Good evening. That light is very bright. I'm not squinting. Thank you for that introduction. I don't know where you got that from, but I'm impressed. Thank you. So my name's Rosie. I'm a fourth year student at Strathclyde, along with the 8 or 9 other folk that appear to be in the audience. Gordon's asked me to talk a little bit to you about a brief overview of my journey as a Robertson Scholar and the opportunities that I've been able to take up and where it's led me to now, which is something that I'm really proud of and really passionate about. So my current role, as Aaron was saying, was I'm co-leading a bit of national research on improving the lives of children and young people who are in care. In Scotland, there is a wonderful charity called Who Cares Scotland who did a brilliant campaign alongside a lot of children and young people to get a national review of the care system, to begin to look at some of the problems it has, to begin to look at some of the practices that just aren't good at the minute, and try and improve that, to try and improve the lives of children and young people. So that is split into about 12 different areas. My area being love, which is, it sounds nice, it is very complex because people have different reactions to that. When you talk about love, some people are like, oh, love. And some people are like, you're researching what? So hopefully I've got about 10 minutes to try and squeeze a year and a half's worth of research in to try and explain to you a little bit about where we're at. So my journey as a Robertson Scholar began, I was a little bit late. I started around the Christmas of first semester, so I unfortunately missed the Outward Bound weekend. But I was, thankfully, in time to take up Donna Marie on the end of first year internship. Donna Marie and Kenneth were really, really supportive and really helpful. I knew that I wanted to work with children and young people, vulnerable children and young people, and they managed to get me an internship at Aberlour charity. So I worked there, and that was brilliant. That really sort of cemented the idea that I wanted to work with children and young people, and teenagers, awkward teenagers, love awkward teenagers. And then at the end of that, they offered me a position to stay on as a youth worker, which was great. I worked there for second, third year. So I was really, really grateful for that opportunity. It helped me with money through university. And I built a really good relationship with my boss, Sally Ann Kelly. She's the CEO of Aberlour. She's a lovely woman. And in 10 minutes, I've got to try and explain this. 2016, Nicola Sturgeon stood up as a result of the campaigning by Who Cares Scotland and said, right, we need to do a national review of the care system. So they put out for nominations, and a chair was appointed, a wonderful woman called Fiona Duncan, who from the outset said that if we're doing a review into children and young people who've experienced care, who've been looked after away from home, or who have been through the children's hearing systems, we don't want to be a bunch of professionals that sit in a fancy room with doors shut and figure out the problems and then just announce the problems that they think children and young people face. And they made a commitment that from the very start, 50% of all the staff, all of the team of the care review would be care experienced young people and care experienced professionals. and they put out for nominations to recruit people. And my boss, so one of the reasons I got involved with the care review is I'm care experienced myself. So from about age 12, I was accommodated down in England. I was in between foster care and residential care. And I was also studying social work. So she asked if I wanted to become involved with this review. And to be completely honest, I had no idea what she was talking about, but it was my director, so I sort of agreed and went along to a launch meeting, and Nicola Sturgeon was there, and I was like, oh, well, I don't know what I've got myself into here. But it's brilliant. So I'm presuming some folk in the audience will know about the independent care review and the way it's designed, and a lot of folk won't. But roughly it's been split into 3 years. So we spent a year talking to children in care, people who have left care, social workers, parents who've had children removed, kinship carers, social workers. And we just listened around the country saying, right, what's going well, what's not going so well, how can we improve, how can we make this experience better for children who, for one reason or another, perhaps can't stay at home. So we spent a year doing that, and from that, 10 themes came out. So I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, I'm nervous. But they cover things like health, mental health. Everybody probably knows that the time to wait and see a counsellor or get support with your mental health, the waiting lists are ridiculous. It's about 6 months. Justice and care. Is it right that we put children in child prisons? There's a lot of debate around that. The stigma, the rights of children, and my stream that I'm currently working on, which is around love. And I don't know if any of you saw last October, Who Cares did a massive love rally, and there was thousands of folk walked around Glasgow city centre campaigning for the rights for children in care to be able to feel loved, which was brilliant. So my role, I suppose, really involves continuing those conversations with children and young people and social workers and saying to children, did you feel loved when you were removed and you went into a different family or you went into a residential child home? Did you feel loved? And there's a lot of children and young people that say, yes, I did. But there's a lot more that say, no, I didn't. And we've been tasked with trying to find out what can we do to ensure that these children and young people can feel as loved as any other child. So love is a very, when I speak to people about love, I tend to get one of two reactions. There's the people that get it and say, of course, every child and young person deserves to be loved. So I've got a dry mouth, I'm nervous. People who get it, and then there's folk that, mainly professionals, social workers and carers, who are a bit dubious, and they tend to go, is it appropriate to say that we love children, young people in care, they're not our children? Where are the professional boundaries? And people can be a little bit dubious, being, what do you mean about love? So I suppose, I don't know how many of you in the audience know anything about care. So if you can imagine for 1 second that you're a social worker, you're a nursery care teacher, you're walking down the street and a really cute, small 3-year-old falls over, hurts themselves, crying, and you sat with them and you were, they're there, it's okay, and you composed the child, and they came up and they gave you a hug and they were like, oh, thanks, and they were dead cute. Honestly, hand on heart, raise your hand if you think that you'd be okay with that, a little small child sort of giving you a hug if you'd helped them. Okay, that's a start. Again, honestly, keep your hand up if you'd be okay if that was a 15-year-old teenage boy. Yeah, there's less hands. And that is sort of the simplest way that I can try and explain what we're trying to do is at what age does a child have to be before we become a little bit standoffish about giving them a hug if they're upset, and giving them a cuddle and putting them on our knee and saying, it's okay, they're there, we love you, things like that. At what age? And when you ask people that, they sort of go, And it's trying to unpick, what is it? Is it a fear factor? Is it people confuse, this honestly goes over my head, but some people confuse romantic love with comforting a child. Some people are scared that they're going to get in trouble. Some people think that there's policies. Apparently people think there's policies that say you can't hug a child. And this is myths, and it's about trying to challenge people and educate people, saying that's not a thing. If a child is upset and they need a bit of love and a cuddle, why can we not give a child or a young person a cuddle if they're upset, no matter how old they are? So I suppose if I said to you, how do you know that your parents, your brothers, your sisters, your best friends loved you? How do you know they love you? What would come into your head? And I suppose when I think about that, I think, well, they made me feel safe. They were encouraging. They were supporting of me. They wanted me to do my best. They gave me a hug when I was sad. That is how I personally would define familial love. So what is it about that we all get weird about and step away from when we're talking about children and young people that need it the most? When you're a teenager and, you know, you're being a teenager and kicking off and stuff, you need that. And unfortunately, there's young people out there that don't have that, because we have certain people who are scared that that's okay to begin to regulate a child. So it's about, that's what the research is in a nutshell. So it's not about all of us jumping around telling each other that we love each other and cuddling people, and it's not about that, but surely we can adopt the characteristics that we've just thought about when we think about how we're loved and how we're supported and all those things that make us feel supported and loved by our families. Surely we can find a way, whether we're in social work, whether we're in social care, or whether we're in engineering or marine biology. It's just about the way that we act with each other. But whether we're in the system, whether we've been in the system as children, whether we've got siblings or friends, or we work in this system that we call looked after children, it makes no difference, I suppose, because what's the harm in spreading a little more kindness and a little more compassion and a little more love to each other anyway, especially to children and young people. Love's really important, and especially to the fourth years that are in the room. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Rosie. I think just one very good example of just how the great things that many of the scholars achieve, and scholars all over the years, and it was very insightful and eye-opening. I thought now, just before we meet our next speakers, I'll invite Lee and Hayley to come up and take a seat. Now, Lee and Hayley, they're very good friends of mine, and a very good friend of mine is anyone who's seen me in a wetsuit. And they've seen me in a wetsuit, I think, well, 1 time's too many, but 3-4 times too many. And the story they're about to tell for you, their journey into the Sir Ian Good Leadership Award, is a very interesting story indeed, and a story that some of you might be eligible to pursue in a few years to come. But before that, I think we have another one of these facts.
I think we might.
Yes.
I knew there's a reason for me being here, and it's to give you these strange facts, because otherwise Aaron would be perfectly fine on his own. But yes, you may not, in fact, I'm pretty sure you don't know that the Robertson Trust is also responsible for another trust, known as the Clappers Trust, which owns 5 cottages in the village of Mordington Clappers and 1 in the village of Paxton, both in Berwickshire. So you didn't know that we owned property? Well, through the Clappers Trust, we do. They were houses that were lived in by the original residents who were all former employees of the Mrs. Robertson, yet another example of what the Mrs. Robertson did for the community and for people. And those people were tenants for life. And after those people have no longer lived there, their houses are now run for us by the Berwickshire Housing Association. So another little snippet of the kind of things that the Mrs. Robertson did for their community.
Wonderful. So, are we ready? Yes? It really is a fantastic story. So please welcome Lee McLeavy and Hayley Hutchison.
So as Aaron and Gordon just mentioned, Hayley and I are both Sir Ian Good Leadership Award winners. But instead of just talking about ourselves, we're actually going to talk about each other and the kind of things that we've done over the past few years. So when I first met Hayley back in first year at Outward Bound, I think it's fair to say she was quite shy and didn't have a lot of confidence. But in fact, I now know, having spent plenty of time with her, this is actually something that she'd struggled with for a long time, like prior to starting university, and it's held her back from doing things that she's always wanted to get involved in. However, since becoming a Sigla winner and a Robertson Trust ambassador, I know that Hayley has made some amazing progress and has achieved some incredible things. Hayley's first real challenge was becoming an ambassador for the Trust as part of Sigla at Stirling University. In her second year, she mentored a group of first-year scholars to help them settle into university and adapt to life away from home. Hayley personally knew how daunting this could be and how it's very common to feel lonely in first year, which I'm sure is something a lot of us can identify with. So she was really determined to create a support network for the first years, to make friends, ask questions, and know that there's other people involved in the same situation. And I know she was really successful with this. An example of this success is that her and a group of scholars were the first group ever to volunteer at Stirling University with Stirling Carers. They've done a fundraiser for this charity where they've had presents, which I know was supported by the Robertson Trust, and the money that they raised was also matched by the Trust, which was an incredible contribution to the charity. It was also a fantastic achievement for Hayley personally, as she really stepped up to lead the group out of her comfort zone, but I'm sure that everyone that she worked with and the charity really appreciated her efforts. Since then, the Ian Good Leadership Award has thrown loads of challenges and opportunities at both Hayley and myself. From more outward bound experiences and residentials to dinners with successful business people, such as the Chief Executive of Scottish Renewables and the Vice President of Barclays. It's been a whirlwind few years. I know that Hayley has had some worries about the dinners that we've had, as have we all, but this is more in relation to the fact that Brexit and politics are usually discussed between mouthfuls of food more than anything else. But I'm sure this is not just Hayley, out of Hayley's comfort zone rather than everyone's. But if you can confidently discuss Brexit at a dinner table, then you can discuss anything. But regardless of what Sigla has thrown at Hayley, she's handled it all with nothing but determination, persistence, and a newfound confidence. I know that Hayley has made some incredible progress over the past few years with the help and support of her mentor, Emma. I now know that she's in the process of applying for graduate jobs in her field of English, and I know that she'll be really successful in this. Hayley very openly admits that a huge chunk of this success, progress, confidence, and self-development can be attributed to the opportunities that she's been given through Sigla and the Robertson Trust. Both Hayley and myself would like to thank Sir Ian, Kenneth, and the Robertson Trust for supporting us through the quickest 4 years of our lives.
So just to follow on from what Lee said, I think when I think back to when I first met Lee at the residential weekend in first year, I don't think either of us would picture ourselves sitting up here as winners of the Sigla Award. But having spent a lot of time with Lee over the past few years, I know how much this award means to her, and not only developing her leadership skills, but also her confidence. Again, starting university, it can be a really daunting experience, and I think that's something that we can all identify with. But for Lee in particular, I think going to Edinburgh University to study law is quite intimidating. You're surrounded by all these strangers who have such loud opinions, and it's like trying to find your feet and where you fit in. But I know being an ambassador for the Trust and being a Sigla winner has really encouraged Lee to be proactive and confident and to trust that our opinions do matter. So a particular memory that I have of Lee, but I really found the great leadership skills that she has, is when we went on our ambassador training. We spent a week at Outward Bound. And just to put this week into context, we had an ex-military man as our instructor, which was really tough, and we were just not prepared for the week ahead that we were going to have. On the first day, within an hour of arriving, we were told that we were going to be swimming from Ulster to Howtown, and he had the expectation that we were going to climb a mountain shortly after. I just remember the four of us looking at each other when we realised that Lee was the only person who could swim in our group. But nonetheless, the four of us, we all jumped into the lake, and we didn't know if we were going to make it to the other side or not. But Lee instantly took leadership of our group, and she just kept us calm. And I just remember we were halfway across the lake, and Lee just began to give us swimming lessons on basic things such as how to kick your feet and how to basically not drown. So you can just imagine how stressful this would have been for Lee to basically keep 3 adults from not drowning in a lake. But although Lee was a confident swimmer and she's a lifeguard as well, I think the main challenge for Lee was kind of keeping the group calm and keeping us safe. And I think this was when we realised that teamwork is really important. It's about having patience with each other. I'd imagine if Lee had done this task by herself, she probably would have climbed the mountain as well at the end, and you probably would have swam the lake in half the time. But instead, she really showed us that it's okay not to be the best sometimes, and it's okay to take a step back. It's all about getting together at the end as a group, and it was there when I really realised how great leadership skills that you have. Since becoming an ambassador and a SIGLA leader, Lee has achieved amazing things over the past few years. She has mentored fellow scholars at Edinburgh University, where she organised regular meetups and pizza nights when settling into university. And Lee and her group also hosted a charity pub quiz for a local youth homeless charity, which the Trust kindly match funded. And I know that this opportunity has been really rewarding for Lee, and I'm sure that her group are really grateful for the support that she offered them as well. Since becoming SIGLA leaders as well, I think we've just been provided with lots of new challenges and experiences together, from the dinners that we've had to the public speaking training. We've also been receiving professional mentoring from professionals related to our degree. Lee has been working with Shonag, who is the chairman of the Trust, and they both attended a sponsorship dinner together at the National Museum of Scotland. And I think speaking to business professionals can be quite nerve-wracking, especially in the context of a business dinner. But Lee has often said if you can speak at one of those dinners, you can have the confidence to speak at anything. When I think back to when I first met Lee, she was really quite intimidated about starting university. I think to how far she's came, I think it's just absolutely amazing. And I think the most important thing that Lee's learned is that it's okay to kind of have your own opinions and hold your own. And I think a huge part of this confidence has come from being SIGLA leaders and from the Trust recognising our potential and encouraging us to build upon this. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of all of us leaders. Thank you for recognising our potential and encouraging us to build upon this. The SIGLA programme has been incredibly helpful towards us leaving university and trying to secure a graduate job. So thank you to Sir Ian and to Kenneth and to all of the team at the Trust for providing us with this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee and Hayley. That was fantastic, and hopefully by now you're beginning to get the theme here from that fantastic keynote from Rosie and from that talk there, which is about what the opportunities are that are available to you as Robertson scholars, and the really just asking you to think about what the experiences are and to take every opportunity to make the most of them. As you've heard, there are all sorts of different things, and you'll hear even more later on in the evening, that the scholars are doing, that you are doing, and we're here to support you doing that. So take what you're hearing today and think about, what do you want to do next? And remember that the people who are talking to you are still scholars. Rosie's doing all that she's doing with the care review, and she's still a scholar. It's not something she's doing later. And what I will say is that if I think back to when I was a student, I wasn't thinking about any of this. I was thinking about lots of things, but none of them were about helping people the way Rosie does. None of them were about my self-development. So there's an opportunity here, and we want you to take it. But before we move on to the next speaker, who's getting himself ready there, Aaron, would you by any chance have a fact about the Trust that you might like to tell us?
I don't know, Gordon, do I?
Oh, I don't know, do you?
Actually, the fact I have is one that has really interested me because it just took me by surprise. So up until this year, the Robertson Trust only owned one photograph of the three sisters. Now, we've seen various paintings and the likes, but we've only managed to have the one photograph. And of course, that changed early this year when we managed to acquire another one. And I believe it's on the top floor now of Robertson House.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think I was in the other day when it was all wrapped in its tin foil and was getting put up. So if you're ever in Robertson House at your workshops or whatever, have a look upstairs and you'll see photo number 2. And I think it's on this screen at some point.
Hoping it's in there somewhere.
Yes, absolutely. And while we're on the photo thing, have we all been on Instagram yet?
Any Instagramming going on?
I don't have 400 more followers yet.
No, he's checking.
Make it happen.
Thank you. And there's a little tip there, always wrap your photos in tin foil. That's very important. So, moving on swiftly to our next second keynote, in fact, of the evening from Mark Lang. Mark is the chair of the Scholarship Committee. You will have, some of you will have heard from him before. He's also vice chair of the Trust as a whole. And has had, I won't go into all the details because it would take all evening, but has had a distinguished career in business and is currently the chairman of Nairn's Oat Cakes, a fact which is of constant delight to those of us in the office. who benefit from that connection. But we're very, very fortunate to have Mark as our scholarship chair, and it's always a joy to hear him speak to us and to the scholars. So I'll hand over to Mark.
Thank you very much, Gordon. It's a very long time since I was a scholar, I can tell you, if I ever was. I don't think I ever was. But good evening, everybody, and can I add my welcome to you all tonight and say how good it is to see so many. It's great to see a room full and such a great buzz in the room tonight. So I hope you are all enjoying our gathering this evening as much as I am. And I'm very proud to be chairman of the Scholarship Committee of the Robertson Trust. We oversee and direct the scholarship work that we do. And during the 8 years that I've been involved with scholarship, I have taken great pleasure in seeing the scope of our work growing year by year under the leadership of Kenneth Ferguson and Gordon Hunt, and so ably supported by the scholarship team. And it is my expectation that this work will continue to expand over the next few years as we build new partnerships with institutions and with others, and as we become involved with young people at an earlier stage in their schooling, and as we develop ways of broadening our programs still further. Our work now extends significantly beyond the core journey to success. Today, we have several exciting programs reaching into primary and secondary schools to help young people without a family history of further or higher education to prepare better, to make more informed choices sooner about the ways they want their careers to progress. We're working very successfully with St Andrews University and the First Chances program, with the Social Mobility Foundation, and with MCR Pathways, who work particularly with young people from a care background. Together, we are developing programs which demystify university, help people to prepare better to get good grades in their exams, and to make the right course choices for them when they go on to college and university. This work is bearing fruit. And amongst this year's new scholars, there are over 30 young people who have come through these routes, and we expect this number to keep on rising. We are also delighted that Fife College is now closely involved with the First Chances program. This provides young people in Fife with a much wider range of subject choices and possible destinations, including college courses that may eventually lead on to a university course. We're also working with Borders, Forth Valley, and Glasgow Kelvin colleges to develop programs to support access to courses for young people who are struggling to stay at school. We're learning a lot as we develop these new programs and look forward to finding ways to roll out the projects that yield the best results to other areas of Scotland. Our latest plans involve the development of career pathways, which give scholars who want to pursue particular career paths the opportunity to gain unique insights into what a career in a particular industry or sector really means. Examples of this are the John Smith Award, where we have recently announced that 3 of our scholars will have an opportunity to see at first hand the workings of the political world. And what a time to do it. The Mind Trust Award gives an insight into the planning and delivering of international exhibitions. The 2025 Chartered Banker, an insight into a career in banking. And we're working with Didasco and others to deliver a pathway into investment management, and the Juniper Trust on a pathway to financial services. And we expect to develop more of these career pathways over the coming months and years. And you'll hear a bit more about that from Annie and Donna Marie in a few minutes. There are quite a number of people from these organizations here tonight, so do take the opportunity to seek them out if you're interested and would like to know a little bit more. We are very, very proud of these partnerships and value them enormously. And tonight, I would like to thank all our partners involved in this work for their enthusiasm, their engagement, and their commitment. As Robertson scholars, you are all on a journey to success. But always remember, it is your journey and your success, and you need to take responsibility for the direction of that journey. Tonight, you're hearing from our speakers about several excellent opportunities which are there to enrich your journeys. So do get involved with as many of the programs as you can. They are all great fun, take place in a safe and supportive environment, and all of them help you to prepare for the career that lies ahead of you. So do talk to anyone from the scholarship team about these opportunities, and do please get involved. I think there's little more important in the uncertain world that we live in, both for Scotland and for civil society in general, that we prepare as many of our young people as possible to play a leading role in the economic, political, cultural, and social life of our country. And that is, in essence, what the work of the scholarship is all about. And it gives me enormous pleasure to see young people growing in confidence during their time on the scholarship program and preparing to go out into the world to make their mark. And so I wish all of you in this room the very best of luck as you go forward on that adventure. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. One of the many things I took away from that was this whole thing of demystifying university, was, I think, what he said. And I think that's a thing we all recognise. And I think we were all at that stage at one point where we thought university was maybe that bit too far away to reach onto. But thanks to the Robertson Trust, it was made possible. And the other thing about growing in confidence, it's great at these annual gatherings, actually, to see how much we've all grown and to see how much we've all done year in, year out. And our next speakers are another example of that. We have Nicole, Leon, and Shabana, if you'd like to come up and take a seat in the hot seat. Now, Nicole is another of this year's Sir Ian Good Leadership Awards scholars and is studying law at Aberdeen. We'll get there.
Nobody from Aberdeen either.
And Shabana is one of our second-year ambassadors and is studying dentistry at Dundee.
Two in from Dundee.
Along with several other scholars, Nicole and Shabana undertook a sailing expedition with the Ocean Youth Trust last summer. This expedition is part of the Sir Ian Good Leadership Award programme every year, but in 2018 was opened up to some of our other ambassadors as well. And we've asked Nicole and Shabana to share some of their experiences with us. But Gordon, I think you have another one of her facts.
Do you know, I do.
Wow.
And oddly enough, I have one that's entirely appropriate to the next item. And some of you may know this because we do occasionally talk about this one in some of the workshops, but the Trust funds the Peterhead lifeboat. The Robertson sisters provided the funds to buy a new one many years ago, and since then we've funded a replacement, which is still in service today. This was after the Robertson sisters funded their first lifeboat at Thurso in 1970. So I'm sure all of this will have been great comfort to Nicole and Shabana when they were on their sailing expedition. Even in those circumstances, our funding was standing ready to help you if you needed it. So over to Nicole and Shabana.
Good evening. I hope everyone can hear me. So, as they mentioned, this is Captain Nicole, and I got to meet her through the Sir Ian Good Leadership Award voyage, where we went for 5 days sailing expedition. And that's what we're going to speak to you tonight about, how we heard about it, how we felt about it, and what we actually achieved from it. So what is your role, Nicole, in the scholarship scheme?
Well, as Shabana says, she's a second year, and so she's actually an ambassador for the Trust, and that's originally how my journey had started out. I was an ambassador, and I'd progressed onto the Sir Ian Good Leadership Award through that. And it's definitely increased my confidence, my leadership capabilities, but for me, the main thing about the Leadership Award, as I'm sure plenty of other fourth years are feeling at the moment, I had no clue what I wanted to do with my degree after I left, and with the patience and the understanding of both Sir Ian and Shonig, as they've shown me kind of where I want to go, it's given me a lot of clarity, and because of the time that they've invested in me, I now know where to find the opportunities I'm looking for. What about you? How are you finding the programme?
The program is so far amazing. I'm in my second year, so I haven't been through that yet. So I'm an ambassador for Dundee Scholars. I hope they're all here. And I chose to become an ambassador because I had an amazing time in the residential induction weekend. First of all, it wasn't only an opportunity for me to challenge myself and grow, but also that's where I first met my ambassador. And seeing someone who's been through the ups and downs of first year of university, and that she is always there for me to help me and support me, was very reassuring. So that's why I chose to become an ambassador for the new scholars, and I see it as a good way to give back to the team because they support us a lot. And so what is the voyage actually, Nicole?
So before you actually embark on the Sir Ian Awards, you're meant to go on a sailing expedition with the Ocean Youth Trust, but unfortunately the other leaders, they couldn't actually make it, so it was either going to be me going on the boat myself, but then Annie very kindly managed to make sure that I had a full functioning crew. So we actually hadn't met each other at all until we'd arrived in the boat, and then so it was actually quite intense. How did you find it?
As she mentioned, I didn't know anyone, and I kind of heard about this expedition last minute because people couldn't go, so they asked the ambassadors if they want to go. And because I couldn't swim, first of all, I was very scared. And then staying with people who I never knew for 5 days was kind of overwhelming. However, I didn't regret going to this expedition. I loved it, and we will tell you why.
Yeah, definitely. Shabana had seemed a bit kind of quiet, reserved, a bit shy to start with, and that can be really hard to be pushed into that leadership role. And so we all had different tasks, and we would have tasks like somebody has to make dinner or somebody has to do the cleaning up, but then we also had the sailing expedition tasks, so someone would have to get us away from the port, and Shabana's role was actually one night we weren't staying at a port, much to my discomfort. We were actually sleeping on the water that night, so Shabana had to safely anchor us, but there was so much work that was actually involved. I just thought you just would put the anchor out and hope for the best. But she had to do so much research beforehand about where we would actually anchor, the depth of the water, to make sure we didn't damage any of that expensive equipment. But she did all of her research, and then again there was a whole crew of us, and she used diagrams, she used a whiteboard and all these different ways to actually explain it to us. And from being that really quiet and shy and reserved to just taking charge so seamlessly, and the task went to hand. We didn't break anything, so.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. Yeah, Nicole. First of all, when I first met Nicole, she was confident from the start, and she was very funny. So I really liked her from the start, and I was excited to stay with her for 5 days. And when it came to leading the task, she was amazing at that as well. And her task was quite difficult as well, because she had to take us and ride the boat actually through a very narrow river, which was quite scary and risky. So she had to make a very precise plan and delegate those plans and processes to the people, the team, which was 4 of us. And she had to know who could do one job well and more than other one. So she knew our weaknesses and strengths. And according to that, she delegated the job to us, and she made sure we were doing fine. And she actually got us out of that narrow river safely.
In one piece.
However, there was this one day where Nicole had a mental breakdown.
That's putting it lightly. It was more like a midlife crisis.
mainly because it was quite claustrophobic and crowded, and she didn't really like the conditions. However, she was a very resilient person and strong. She didn't give up, even though she didn't like the conditions. She got along with us very well. She made sure we were doing well, and we were making sure she was doing well. She would always make us laugh, which was amazing. So at the end of this voyage, what I really liked about her was her teamworking. Despite not liking the conditions, she was still amazing at getting along with people, which is actually very similar to real life situations, because you might get to, for example, a workplace where you don't really like the people, or don't like the conditions, but you still have to get along with them and do the work.
So I think for me, aside from giving me like really sore arms and everything else, the sailing expedition, it really taught me how resilient I can actually be. Come that Thursday, I was like, get me off this boat, I've had enough. But I stayed with it, and especially being in my 4th year right now, and I feel like I'm pulling my hair out constantly at the library. I'm like, if I could get through that boat, I can get through this essay. So it's really taught me a lot about perseverance and how much it actually pays off to stick with it. But as well, kind of thinking about graduating and kind of the employment and where I want to go, I think it's really easy just to kind of snap up any opportunity that comes along. But being on that boat and kind of being at my breaking point, it really taught me that you need a strong team behind you. Being a leader isn't just about dominating or kind of taking charge. You need that support. So definitely go on the boat and learn about how great teamwork is.
Yeah, definitely. So overall, we thoroughly enjoyed this trip. It was amazing. First of all, the leadership tips we got, and I still transfer those skills to my other roles that I have, and I will be doing so in the future as well. And most importantly, we made great friends, so we know actually each other very well.
Yeah, maybe too well.
We saw amazing, very beautiful sunset views, and we went to beautiful places. And lastly, I want to give massive thanks to the Robertson Trust team for giving us this good opportunity, and we really enjoyed it, so we're very grateful.
Yeah, and now we get the leadership qualifications and the hats to prove it, so get involved.
Definitely. Yep, thank you for listening. That's the end.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicole and Shabana. Did you put the hat on? Look at their hats. So we've heard from quite a few of the scholars tonight, but I think we're about to hear from two very familiar faces to us all. And I think it's always interesting to get the sort of perspective of the staff at the Robertson Trust. And certainly through being an ambassador and in the Sir Ian Good Award, it's been very insightful, I have to admit, to see the goings on. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a sort of workshop in preparation for this evening for all of us talking, and Gordon came along to that, and bless him, he had so much on his plate. He said he had skyscrapers of paperwork on his desk to get through, and it was Friday afternoon, and he was just wanting to get through all that. Perhaps it was one of the last things he wanted to be doing that evening, just sitting around planning different things with us. But he said, actually, he turned around to me at one point, and he says, you know what? I couldn't have asked to be in a better place right now, because it's just great to sit back now and then and see the great work that all of us do all across the board. And it's interesting because Gordon's had so many fantastic jobs in his life. You'll need to buy him a pint one day and sit him down and ask about all his career positions. But he tells me that this is by far the most rewarding job he's had. Every job he's had, he's always been looking for that something else. And he said that ever since he started working here at the Robertson Trust, he's just been satisfied. Every day brings something new that he just sits back and goes, wow, what a job. So I think he's loving life. So,
Are you done?
I'm done, Can go on for a while if you want.
So I think you've embarrassed me enough there, but thank you for that, Aaron. And he's absolutely right. It is the best job in the world. And that leads me on to introduce something that's always a pleasure, which is to introduce some of my wonderful colleagues. And I'm not alone in thinking that this is the most wonderful job in the world. We all think that. And I know sometimes you'll think that we're just people in the office. You're ringing up Jade or Gemma and explaining why you can't come to something or explaining why you can come to something. And there's lots of things we ask you to do. But what I think you need to know, and hopefully it comes over in all the events that we do, is that we do this because we love doing it and that we believe in you. And there's no better job than being asked to help you to achieve what you can from your lives. And so all we're seeing tonight is about the amazing things you're all doing. And so the satisfaction for us is just to see that and to be able to work with you. And leading on from that, I don't really need to introduce these two people here, but I will introduce Dr. Annie Doyle and Donna Marie Steele. Annie, as you know, is our Scholarship Training Manager, and Donna Marie is a little way into her new role as Scholarship Project Officer. And what we've asked them to do this evening to kind of begin to round off the evening is to talk a little bit about internships, career pathways, the opportunities that we're offering to you to send you away with some thoughts on how you might begin to get even more out of your time with the Trust. So over to Annie and Donna Marie.
I can feel the love in the room. That's lovely. We actually thought this was going to be a great opportunity to point out that Donna Marie has moved into a new role. I think you've been in the role of Scholarship Training Officer for such a long time that people just expect you to be there forever. Yep. But she has been promoted now. She's now looking after the widening access projects and out dealing with external partners and basically bringing her organisation skills that we have all felt the benefit of out to the wider community. But one of the other things we thought it'd be a really good opportunity to talk about is how things have changed since Donna Marie was a scholar. Because as you know, we have quite a few Robertson scholars. I was going to say former Robertson scholars, but once a scholar, always a scholar. We have quite a few Robertson scholars who work within the scholarship team. But things were a bit different when you were on the scheme yourself. Can you take us back through the mists of time, Donna Marie?
Oh, mists of time, yeah, I'm not that old. So when I was a Robertson scholar between 2005 and 2009, and I know Gemma was the same and Danielle as well, it was very different to what scholarship is now. And I don't want to say it was just money, because obviously the money was very successful and really beneficial to me. So I was brought up with my gran in kinship care, so having that extra financial support was fantastic. But all we had to do really was do a couple of reports and turn up to meetings like this, which weren't as big as scary as this. There was about 200 scholars when I was a scholar, so it wasn't as big as it is now.
Mm-hmm. And the reports were completely different as well. They called them Dear Lydia letters, didn't they? Yeah. That was just a letter to Lydia, who was the former head of scholarship, still head of admin. Basically just saying, thanks very much for the money, Lydia. That was all you had to do, really. Yeah. So how much have things changed then? What do you think has been the most impressive change?
I think the whole Journey to Success programme. So when I graduated from uni, and I know, Nicole, you were saying you didn't know what you wanted to do and things like that. When I left uni, I graduated from Glasgow Uni with an honours degree in sociology and anthropology, and thought, Rosie, I could be a social worker. I thought I could just apply to all these jobs and I would get them right away, and obviously that's not the case, so you have to have lots of experience and all this work experience on your CV. So when I graduated, I really struggled, and I worked in Marks and Spencer's, continued on my part-time job, got full-time hours there, and then started to get really down, thinking this isn't for me, I need to get out, how can I get more experience? And used actually my contact at the Robertson Trust at the time was Lydia. I knew quite a lot about the charity work that the Trust do. So I had got involved, actually emailed Lydia to say, could you give me some advice on how to approach charities for some voluntary experience? And at that time, Lydia said, come in to the Trust and have a conversation. And by luck, they were looking for somebody to do a sort of admin role within the Trust. So that was a 6 months internship 9 years ago. Not let me go yet.
This was the very first internship. Which you became passionate about. Actually, this has also been a great opportunity for you to set the record straight that you did not capture Lydia in Marks and Spencer's when she was in doing her shopping.
I promise.
I have spread this myth. I'm really sorry. But I don't know whether it's just because I presume Robertson scholars have got that gumption, and you represent that gumption, so that if you saw someone and thought, I am just going to chance my luck and I'm going to say, could you give me a bit of advice on how I could perhaps expand my network and get into that line of work?
Yeah, I think that was my my email. I wasn't as bolshy as approaching her.
You didn't stop her at the
No,
checkouts?
no, but I think with my email and just asking, and one of the scholars one time said to me, one of the workshops we do about what's your mission and what's your statement, one scholar says, oh, nae cheek, nae chance, and I thought, well, do you know what could she say? Nae cheek, nae chance.
I think we need that on a coat of arms.
That's
or something,
it, yeah.
As long as you do it with a smile, that's important. So you came into the Robertson Trust on this internship that was mainly admin skills, admin focused. Although secretly she was learning everything she could about the trust so that someday she can take it over. That's really what we think is going on. But you came in to do that admin role, and then how did you adapt that? Because you came in on a very kind of simple role, and then you started to expand it and make it your own.
Lydia at the time was looking after scholarship herself, so there was 200 scholars, but still 200 reports coming in, 200 people to invite to events and stuff like that. So I started to do more of the sort of admin for the scholarship, and then that was where my passion lay within the scholars and supporting all these guys. And then when Kenneth joined the trust the year after me, actually, he put a lot of work into building the scholarship and had conversations with me about what could be better, what would be different for the scholars, and my sort of main concern was we need to do more than not just sort of give the money away. So now, as we describe it, it's that self-development programme you're all part of with that bursary attached to it. So we started Journey to Success,
and I know
you're very involved in.
I know, and I came along just at that point of this expansion that Kenneth was instrumental in kickstarting. And taking it from only 60 scholars maybe coming in a year to now 160. So yeah, things have grown really rapidly, and I've not even been here 5 years, and things have changed an awful lot. But I think to come in as someone who was brought on board to deliver the workshops and help roll out the Journey to Success, it was really interesting speaking to you and Danielle, because you were former scholars, and your attitude was, yeah, well, that's all very good and well, but really we need to start doing more of this. And the thing that I'm actually most impressed by is the development of the internship scheme, because we can see how that's had an impact on individuals. What's your take on the internship scheme?
Oh, that's my passion, really, the
That's your
internships, and doing that, not only for supporting the scholars, getting all this brilliant work experience, but for the trust to develop all these partnerships. I mean, we're placing scholars with local charities that we support, to Barclays, to sending scholars over to Ukraine with the Halo Trust. So we're building that network of contact, and also letting external people know about the trust and let them know that we've got 600 wonderful young people that they can support and they can take on to hopefully shape Scotland's future.
That's what we're hoping, that we're going to have not the next First Minister, but hopefully there's going to be a scholar that will be running the country. That's the kind of dream we've got, isn't it? 5 years will we give it?
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything else you want to add about how much things have changed?
I think just the number of internships, we were having this conversation the other day about when I was first looking after internships, there was only 50, and I say only 50, for me to source, but now that Gemma's taken over my role as training officer, she's got over 100 internships to source now. And what we were chatting about is it's great for us to be able to identify these internships for you guys, but you need to help us as well, and it's about being supportive. And I think Mark was saying about it's your journey and it's your success, so you need to let us know. And what makes us be so warm and cosy inside is when you email us or phone us and say, do you know what, Donna Marie or Gemma, I want to go and work for this company. I've seen them, they're really great. Can I pass your contact details to them? And that means we've got a wee tick, yeah, somebody's looking for something. So it means we can then focus on building that relationship with that organisation as well. So it's about people, you guys supporting us as well in that journey to get you to where you need to be.
I mean, it's great when we have scholars that come to us and say, I have no idea what I want to do. And then we can spend a bit of time working with you and help you direct towards something that's going to find that career path that's going to be right for you. But it makes a huge difference if you've already got some ideas that we can work with you on. Because we are a very tiny team. Just remember that. But we have some other fantastic initiatives in the pipeline too.
Yeah, the career pathways that you mentioned there. So Gemma's now looking after a number of career pathways, and they've been mentioned, and you'll see emails coming out inviting you to sort of information sessions or maybe drop-in sessions with these organisations that we're working with. There was one today for the legal career pathways, and what we're trying to sort of encourage you to do is have a think about it. Even if you're not sort of thinking, that's my direct route I want to go down, just go and find out a wee bit about it. And one of the examples we use is somebody, and I know Roland Bones in the audience somewhere, about one of the scholars who went to Barclays, and she was studying history. And when I first was trying to sort of identify an internship for her, I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? She's going to need to go and work in a museum somewhere or something like that. And she said, you know what, I'm actually quite interested in finance. And I hadn't put that connection until she told me that. So it's important that we have these opportunities for the scholars to get involved in and find out about, well, what route can I go down? Even if I'm not studying that subject direct, there might be an area of interest that I can get involved in.
And being able to have chats with people like Roland. I know Roland's very keen to chat with the scholars. We won't bombard you with all 600, but being able to talk to someone who's already been along a career that you're perhaps interested in, but you don't quite know whether it's the right fit for you, can make a huge difference to deciding whether you would like to do 8 weeks work experience in that field. So yeah, definitely working with people.
So what about you though? I've been telling you all my passions at the trust.
I've turned into Ellen here, haven't I?
I know, I'm like
interrogating you.
And I like how we've got some glasses
I know.
here. Like.
Was it just chink glasses, chin chin? What am I proud of? As Gordon mentioned, this is a job that you just can't stop loving because we love you guys. This is what we do it for you. I think one of my proudest points in the calendar is maybe the graduate lunch that we have every June. Where we gather together all the graduating scholars and we have a lovely big dinner. I think it's Hilton Doubletree again this year, isn't it?
Yep.
Very nice. And we have lovely guests that come along and we celebrate just that journey that everyone's been on. And it's fascinating actually when you're recognising scholars that you've maybe given an awful lot of support to that have had some really major challenges to get through. And to be part of that journey of support and to help people get through those challenges is a real privilege. All of the other things that we have in place, but when you see it just on that final day, where you know that they're going off to make a real difference in society, is just an incredibly proud moment. So I'll start crying in a minute.
I know, don't start. So what we were saying earlier about, we're trying to think of all different opportunities that we've got available to you guys, and one of the ones that you're really involved in, Annie, is the Self-Development Award.
Yep.
And that's open now for applications?
It is open now. We are currently accepting your applications for that. So that's open to second and third years. It's a project that's of benefit to a community anywhere in the world, but that can be the community right on your doorstep or a community on the other side of the world. But we want a really good application that is going to point out that this is not just going to help a specific community, it's going to develop your career. So I'll give you a bit of support to put together the application. So if you've never done that sort of thing before and applied for funding, then I'll give you support to do that. And that's part of the journey as well, that it's not just about being given some money, told go off and set up this project. We'll support you, we'll put you in touch with people who can help you get that project off the ground. And we've had some really exciting projects over the years. Everything from with Liam, I think Mulkin a couple of years ago in Dundee, who he'd decided, I don't know whether you remember this from last year's gathering, but we talked about how Liam had identified as a deaf student that there just weren't enough scientific BSL signs. So he set up workshops so he could bring people from the scientific community together that were deaf and they could develop BSL signs. So there wasn't a great deal of financial input into that, but the project management skills that he needed to use
and his self-development
to draw those people together, and it's made a huge impact. I think there was about 100 signs that he's brought in that are going to be signed off by the British Sign Language Institute. So yeah, really proud for Liam that he'd organised that.
So people are here tonight thinking, what's this self-development about? Can I apply, or should they just email you and ask some questions about it first?
You can just email me and ask me questions. You can phone me if you like as well. That's whatever you'd like to do. But yeah, the easiest way is just to email in through the scholars box, and we can take it from there with application forms.
Okay.
So Anything else you want to
No,
add to
I
that?
think I'm waiting until Aaron chipping us off this stage in a minute.
I know. I'm waiting on
time.
Gordon tapping his wrist. We could talk all night about how much we love the scholarship. We could sit up here and say how much we adore it. But it is just a case of you letting us know if you need support with something. We don't come out looking for you to give you support, but we are here waiting for you to come and ask us for help. That's what we do. Although you're hiding and widening access now, aren't you?
I know. No, I will always be available to help, and it's been really nice for my development as well, working with the trust from starting on that admin internship 9 years ago, and being developed into my role now, and I'll still always have my wee secret passion for the scholarship.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening.
Thanks very much, Donna Marie and Annie. That was fantastic, and that gives you a real summary, not just of what we're offering, but the kind of journey that all of us on the team have made, including our former scholars. And thanks also to Annie for what's possibly the first recorded use of the word gumption at an annual meeting. I don't know, maybe it's been used before. But we do just want to formally thank at this point our entire team, Annie and Donna Marie, of course, but also Gemma and Jade and Lydia and Pauline, and now we have Victoria as well, and all the team in the office who put a huge amount of work in to make this scheme work for you. And also something we probably don't do enough from a platform like this, which is to thank Kenneth, who's hiding out there in the middle somewhere. I can just about see him. Kenneth is the inspiration that we have for this program. He's the person who gives us our vision. And without his vision, we wouldn't have built the scheme up into what it is today. So he deserves thanks from everybody in this room for that. So just as we close, and we are moving towards the end now, I've had the great pleasure of co-presenting with Aaron this evening, and he has happily embarrassed me early on talking about some of my background to my involvement in the program. But Aaron, would you like to say something about your journey in the Syrian Good Leadership Award?
Yeah, well, there's not much I can add to what's already been said. It's a fantastic program. And actually, as I mentioned, this sort of workshop we had a few weeks ago, we were given this task of, there was a table of objects and we had to pick up an object that best would help us describe our Robertson Trust journey. And there was all sorts. There was Russian dolls, weird Lego creations. And I picked up a small little compass. And a lot of us sort of go, it's really cheesy, but it's something we're all proud of. The reason for picking up that compass was because, quite simply, when I was going into my first year as a scholar and my first year at university, I was completely lost. I didn't know what to expect. I came from a family in an area where not many people do go to university, so I did not know what was coming my way, but I felt that this little clip-on compass was very representative of the trust. They sort of just clipped onto me and suddenly I had a direction. I was given a group of friends to go to university with after Outward Bound, and they've just always been there in the background. As for being an ambassador, a Syrian Good leader, the opportunities are just fantastic. As an ambassador, I have to thank that for my most successful profile picture yet with Nicholas Sturgeon when we were invited along to one of the graduate lunches. And it's just a completely rewarding experience being an ambassador, as you've heard, with a great group I had to work with who are somewhere. There we are. And the Syrian Good program is just magnificent. It gives you those opportunities to test out what it's like to be invited to a very fancy, posh dinner with more courses than you've ever expected, and just how to use the cutlery properly and the likes. We're set now to go to these business dinners should we ever be invited. And of course, one of the biggest things for me has been having a mentor. My mentor is in this room, Kenneth Osborne, wherever he is. He's over there. He's been really helpful to me because I am one of these scholars who, about to graduate in June, I'm a bit like, well, what do I do now? And I remember after I came out from my first meeting with Kenneth, I think I said to you, he gets me. He just gets me. He gets me like no one's ever got me before, which is just invaluable. And he's really helped me sort of think about what I want to do with my future. So the entire experience of being a scholar, sort of Ian Good Leadership Award winner, and an ambassador has just been absolutely invaluable to me. And of course, now that I am about to be a graduate, and I know many of us are on the same boat, well, what does come next for us? Well, it's exactly what Annie said, once a scholar, always a scholar. And Gordon said a very interesting thing the other day to me, that yes, you are always a scholar, and we're never going to ask you to come back and give us any money back for anything. All we ask for is perhaps occasionally a bit of your time to share your story with a room like this. But most importantly, just have that pride as you go throughout life that you are a Robertson Scholar and always will be.
Thanks, Aaron. So I think one of the things that we want to kind of banish from our terminology, and we do it all the time and we have to stop doing it, is referring to former scholars. There is no such thing as a former scholar. You're all just Robertson Scholars, and you always will be. And we have some former who are no longer former. They're just Robertson Scholars in the audience this evening, not just Donna Marie, but others as well. We have set up recently a new LinkedIn group, which is aimed at not just you current scholars, but our alumni, for want of a better word, as well. We do encourage you to join that. We talk about LinkedIn in all the workshops, and I know that's something we've been asked for more support on, so we are going to try and do more for that for you. But there will be opportunities through the LinkedIn group to connect with alumni, with people who may be able to help you, mentor you. So we'll build that up over the next year, and please do take advantage of that. So even when you've got fed up with the Instagram, and you've got too old for Instagram, and you're old like me and you do Twitter instead, nevertheless, LinkedIn is the place to be. And as you progress, we want to hear from you. We've mentioned potential First Ministers. I've got a slightly bigger vision. I've got a vision of 2 Robertson Scholars competing to be First Minister from different parties, not just the one. I think we can absolutely achieve that from the people we have here today. So John Smith Award people, no pressure, but we are expecting you to get there. So just summing up, we've tried to share through the course of this evening some of the amazing opportunities that there are for you and to get some stories from people who've already taken those opportunities. So hopefully we've given you a sense of the things you might want to do. And as we've said throughout the evening, contact Annie, contact Gemma, contact any of us in the office and ask us more about these things. We want you to take up these opportunities. We've got a number of our partners in the audience tonight, and it's great to have them here. We're really grateful for all the support they give to us through internships, through mentoring, through other things. And we really do encourage you to get us putting you in touch with them and talk to them, because they're fantastic people. They're giving up their time because they believe in you as well. And we spend a lot of time telling them how fantastic Robertson Scholars are and how they're the best people that they want for internships. And you never let us down. So keep on doing that and keep on working with those different things. I think that is probably the key message we want from tonight. Take advantage of the opportunities. And Aaron, do you want to maybe thank a few of our
Yes, absolutely.
people?
Well, I think the most important thing to do is to thank everyone who has spoke tonight. So please show your appreciation for everyone. And of course, to all the staff at the Royal Concert Hall, especially whoever it was that told me to turn my mic on, that was very helpful. Thank you. But to all the staff of the Concert Hall for providing this venue. And of course, a very, very important person to thank is, of course, Mr. Gordon Hunt here, because, yes, absolutely. He is an absolute inspiration, and so is his Twitter feed, actually, believe it or not. So you must look that up. It's been wonderful to work with you on this, but it's been quite something to see how much work has went into this, not only just from Gordon, but from all the scholarship staff. And it doesn't happen overnight to make an event like this happen. So just once again to all the team at the Robertson Trust. And finally, before we go, just a thank you to you all for coming, especially those who've come from afar. I think St Andrews brought a coach load down, didn't you? Oh, there we go. So we have finished a little bit early, so we might as well get our money's worth of the venue. Please feel free, when we wrap up, to just hang around and chat to the people you've not seen, perhaps since Outward Bound, etc. And when you do leave, have a very safe journey home.
Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.